He was a former editor of the New York Times House and Home section for 7 years. More recently, he's made the transition to digital publishing, first as director of online content for Dwell magazine, and as publisher of thedesignvote.com. He's blogging and tweeting as he reports and writes The Limit, a nonfiction book about the Ferrari race teams of the late 1950s. David Farley is a food and travel writer who writes for the New York Times, the Washington Post, and National Geographic Traveler, among other publications. He can often be found updating his Facebook and Twitter feeds for his book, The Travelogue Narrative History and Irreverent Curiosity, in search of the church's strangest relics in Italy's oldest town. Dominique Browning is the former editor-in-chief of House and Garden, author of 3 memoirs and 4 books under the House and Garden brand. Her most recent book, Slow Love, How I Lost My Job, Put on My Pajamas, and Found Happiness, is about reinventing oneself after a life collapse and learning to engage in the world in a meaningful way. Since its publication, Browning has gained a significant following on the web through her blog, slowlovelife.com. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely gorgeous, which was inspired by the book. Browning also writes a monthly column about environmental issues for the Environmental Prevents Fund website. Last but by no means least, an uber-connected tweet, Paul Anater began his working life as a journalist and has used his blog, Kitchen and Residential Design, to turn himself from an unknown designer into an industry leader in social media, and I can vouch for that. Along the way, he's carved out a place for himself as a well-known writer and speaker on subjects such as social media, art, and design. He maintains a strong presence on Twitter and Facebook and writes for a number of electronic and print publications. So as you can see, we have a really great group here tonight to talk to us about this really strange new world we find ourselves in. The World Wide Web, viral marketing, social media, goes by lots of names, and lots of people have different opinions about it. One of the ways I set up the PowerPoint was just to kind of give each of our speakers an opportunity to talk about what they felt like was the most important piece of information they would want to impart to a group of writers. And I started with Dominique Browning. She has an incredible eye for photography, not surprising coming from such a strong print background. So I'm going to take you through a few PowerPoint slides with her and let her talk about what she would like to impart with you today in terms of her wisdom of going from print to web.
Okay, well, I guess I am a transitional figure here because I don't really do marketing for my blog, or at least I don't think of myself as marketing my blog, but maybe I do more than I realize. The blog started because I finished my book and I finally understood what I was trying to do in my book, and I thought, well, I want to keep this conversation going. And as I started to blog, and this is way before the book came out, I realized that I was really enjoying this conversation with people. And I say this just to say that I think the most important thing about blogging is that you have to love to write and to connect with people. It's incredibly important because we all have those days where you just feel burned out by it and tired of it, and if you don't love it, it's going to feel like a noose. Anyway, I don't really market my blog, as I said, but I do find that my blog does a lot of marketing for me, and this surprised me. Magazine editors now, and I would do the same if I were running a magazine, are looking online for writers, for new talent, and for ideas. And I find that they're frequently calling me because they've seen something that I've done on the blog. And then I also get calls from people out of the clear blue. Are we on? Yeah. A travel company asked me if I would go along on a trip to India, a place I always wanted to go my whole life, and if I would just write about it for them to promote their company and to promote the idea of the trip, then of course I said, sure, absolutely. And they found me because they loved the way the blog looked. I've had magazines call for assignments because they've seen things that I've written about on the blog, and it's triggered an idea in an editor's mind. And so I've been able to take what might have been 2 sentences in a blog post and turn it into $2,000 in a magazine article. So even though you're blogging for free, unless you have advertising, it is turning into an assignment. I've also had the very weird moment of being about to hit the post button on something. I started thinking about having long hair, and it literally, just as I was about to do that, got a phone call from the New York Times, from a reader of the blog who said, I heard your hair has gotten really long, and do you want to write about that? And I did, and it turned out to be like one of they have the largest response. Who knew? Long hair. You write about acidification and global warming. The hair. Anyway, and then I turned around and wrote other things about that on the blog, and so it sort of started feeding between the audience of people at the Times and the audience on the blog. And of course, every single time I publish an article now, I say, find me at Slow Love Life, because that is the only place to find me regularly. So in that sense, I suppose it's marketing my blog. And, you know, the way I've thought about it, I've talked to a friend of mine, a woman I hired who has become a friend, helped me design and set up the blog, because I didn't know how to do that at first. And she has worked with a lot of different people, including Grace Bonney at Design Sponge, and I think she's a wonderful designer, and we were able to work well together. And I would say to her, okay, well, like, when are we going to have advertising here? And she always says to me, just wait, just keep going, keep writing, keep seeing how your audience goes, keep building it, and keep seeing if you want to do this. So I very quickly, in about a month, decided, okay, I'm not thinking about making money here. I'm thinking about the blog is my marketing department. And in old media, the marketing department basically spends money to make money. And I kind of think of the blog that way. I'm spending personal energy and my own money, in the sense that money is time, time is money, and I'm taking pictures and doing all these other things. But in the end, I feel that it does come back to me in many different ways. Photography. I have never took a picture in my life until last year. And it's really shameful. My children had to grow up and leave home before I got a camera. Fortunately, my sister took all the pictures. But I think because I spent so many years looking at photography, when I finally got my little Canon point and shoot, I was ready to go. And I find I'm online, I do everything online now. I hardly ever get a magazine or a newspaper in print. But I find that what stops me all the time online is photography or art. You know, something somebody has picked up out of a book or a print or a map or just something visual. And I think that we are just at the beginning of understanding how to distinguish ourselves online by making things look great and not being afraid to just give people a visual treat sometimes. You might have nothing more to say than 3 sentences, but that's fine. Let it rip with the photography. And then, and you know, that also helps you have a visual signature. And I'm surprised at how much people don't use just very easy WordPress abilities to put pictures in, or, you know, scan things, or, you know, there are just so many ways to do this that are easy, so many things to find, and it really makes a difference. And, you know, it makes a difference to think creatively about subjects that aren't necessarily visual, but again, just to grab people. And borrow things from magazines. You know, I'm very excited about the world of journalism now and the world of publishing online, because we're at the beginning. We really have no idea what is going to happen in 5 years or 10 years, but that's a great place to be. But look at magazines, look at media, look at old printed things and see what tricks there are to learn from that to bring into your blog or into your online presence, because there are lots of things from that world that are going to help stop readers and grab them. And classical things like interior headlines, since you want to be searchable on your main headline, or pull quotes, or changing the typeface size within a post. Lots of different things that magazine editors do as routinely, but that we've only started thinking about doing in blogging because we aren't designing them as much yet as we will be in 5 years. It's all just starting to happen.